Yes, it is true. The Black Ice Hockey Podcast is back in action. My name is Wayne Abs. I'm right here as always with your co-host Nick Jenks Jenkins. What's going on, man?
Not too much. It's a beautiful winter day in Erie, PA, and I'm burnt out, and I can't wait to live down south at some point in my life.
Yeah, eventually
we're supposed to get more snow today, and I'm tired of it.
Pick out a golf course that we want to live on.
Yeah, let's start researching now because I want to be down there by the time I turn 32, so we're running out of time.
What is that movement? It's like the fire movement. Something, everything. Oh, is it like rest, retire early? I don't know. It's like fire. It's like something, retire early. But
whatever you say, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
Sell everything, sell your soul, retire early. That's how
sell your soul.
Yeah, same here, man. It's about the same weather. Glad it's not 10 degrees or whatever. So, and hockey season for youth is kind of winding down. I think there's a lot of end of the year tournaments that are going on right about now. So it's kind of a crunch time. Either you got it or you don't kind of season that we're in right now. So it's a fun part of hockey right now.
Isn't it crazy to think about, though? Like, we're only at the end of January, and seasons are starting to wrap up. Like, the high school season will be done in 3 weeks here.
Right.
It just seems like I remember hockey going longer than that before. Maybe it's just me.
I think days were slower when we were 14, 15. It's just like you don't.
That's true.
You don't have something to wake up to, and then it's like 9 to 5, and then you clock out at 5. You're like, shit. Now I can actually live my life. And then you go on about your day. So yeah, it's insane. But yeah, I think overall, the next time we talk, I think almost like end of the season tournaments, playoffs will starting. So I think overall the season this year went fairly well. There's I think not too many crazy issues as far as Western PA hockey. At least I know. There's been a few instances around the league, but nothing like somebody's eye has been blown apart or by a shotgun or something like that.
Oh God!
I saw a thing online that a hockey mom in Boston attacked a ref and he's suing. So at least we don't have to deal with that stuff.
Jeez, man!
I don't even know what I'd do if a hockey dad came on the ice. I'd be like, brother, what?
Dude. Parents are crazy these days.
Youth hockey.
Is that what are you doing?
Yeah, so glad to see at least Western PA has calmed down ish from other states and areas. So jumping into some NHL news, as of this past week, I think I want to start with the Four Nations stuff, which is kind of interesting, and it kind of goes along the same lines as the Olympics that happened, the Olympics. So we're starting to see players drop out of this tournament. Now, I believe it's the same week, or they set aside an extra week as the All-Star game, right? So instead of players resting, they will be working. Yes, it's hockey. How can it be work? They're still working. They're working to entertain everybody. But
right.
Most of these players, they're like, hey, look, I care about my millions and millions. I could care less about a Four Nations All-Star Cup thing that was just created.
Right.
So I find it interesting enough to talk about. So give me your takes on the Four Nation dropouts.
Well, I mean, it's not like they're dropping out for no reason. Some of these names that we've seen drop out are dropping out due to injury. A couple weeks to go, but Markstrom had to pull out because they're giving him a 4 to 6 week timeline on his recovery. William Karlsson's injured as well, so he's not going to be there. So now Sweden's going to have to find 2 guys to fill these spots, and Markstrom's definitely one of the goalies who's going to get some playing time there. So that hurts for Sweden for sure. And then we saw Alex Pietrangelo out for Team Canada, so that's going to hurt them as well. It's a really tough situation because you want to go out there and compete with your country, right? You've been looking forward to this for years now. Um, they haven't had best on best international competition,
Right.
and this is the first taste, sort of the appetizer to the Olympics coming up. Um, and I think a lot of the players are genuinely excited about this.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's it's sort of second in priority to your full time job, who's paying you, your NHL team, and winning the Stanley Cup. So I think it's sort of like if you're bumped and bruised, and there's any doubt about it,
Yeah.
you probably should sit this one out and try to get healthy. You don't want to take a chance if you are banged up and it's one of those injuries where a doctor's like, yes, you can make this worse if you try to play on it. You probably want to play it safe because there's a lot of the season left in the NHL, especially if you're on a playoff team
So
like
what
these
you're
guys
saying
are.
is
So
there's going to be no Jack O'Callaghan's, bruise on the leg, a hell of a long way from the heart. Guys out there just, what is it, on stretchers, or what is the thing?
or
Crutches on
crutches
the
on
ice.
stretchers. Jesus,
I
that's
was
pretty
like,
extreme injury they
yeah, my
got there.
brain's just not turned on. So he's just out there on crutches on the ice. So yeah, I find it interesting because I always like look at Sidney Crosby and how many All Star weeks that he skipped. Not skipped, but just said like, hey, like I've been to 95 of these, and I'll be to 95 more of these. I'll probably say no to the second half of the 95, just because like there's a point where an All Star game is an All Star game is an All Star game. And I wonder if like some of these players are looking at this like, are these pro divisions, NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, are they trying to find a way to like reignite the All Star game? Like it used to be, like All Star games used to be like, dude, like this is your best on best, right? Like best in each conference, best in each division. But like players don't care anymore because it's kind of like a vacation. It's vacation time. It's like a midway point where everybody can break. So maybe this is their way to like get everybody back involved and get ratings up again. I'm not sure.
I mean, this is definitely a spin on it that's gonna. It definitely has the players more interested. Like if you're a player and you've got the option between playing a best on best tournament or doing All Star Weekend where you've got to shoot pucks at playing cards in Vegas, like, and do these stupid events in this game that doesn't mean a whole lot. You're picking the best on best tournament every time, so you get more buy-in from the players.
Right.
Um, I think the All Star Weekend is almost more about the fans, and at this point, it's like with the way the All Star Weekend was heading, some of these events and stuff were just really cheesy. I think as a fan, especially as a hockey fan, you're more interested in really knowing who is the fastest skater in
Yeah.
the NHL, who has the hardest shot in the NHL. I don't care if you can shoot pucks at an alligator's mouths or whatever they did in Florida. That's stupid bullshit. It They do too much cheesy stuff anymore, and I think it's just losing the appeal.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to be able to do this best on best tournament every year, so there probably still is going to be some All Star game format in whatever rotation they decide going forward, if they alternate years or whatever. Um, but I think this definitely has, it's going to have better viewership and better buy-in from the players than the All Star Weekend for sure.
Yeah, I noticed like from the Pirates here, the local baseball team, if everybody has heard of them, the farm system basically for the MLB. They have they call it the Pirates Fest, where kind of like the cheesy, like throw the baseball like at certain things, and it like you get to meet each guy, you get to sign, they sign some stuff, sign some balls, bats, whatever. Play catch, run the bases, like do that sort of thing, which is designed for the kids. Like it's literally
Yep.
catered for the younger crowd. Whereas these All-Star games, like, yeah, it's kind of catered towards the All-Star or the younger crowd, but you have so many top end talents where like they're all across like the globe, like good, right? So like people from every country, and some people may be like, dude, like what am I doing here? Like like I don't know, like I can't see Kucherov like buying into like, who was that the one guy that like barely skated through the stick handling stuff? Was it Quinn Hughes
No, it was
or
Kucherov.
was it Kucherov?
Kucherov
Okay.
Kucherov was
Yeah.
showing absolutely no effort, and that clip went viral everywhere.
Right. So it's like stuff like that. You're like, dude, this guy just wants to like get hammered. Like, and I don't doubt him because it's vacation, right? Like, we have to keep in mind stuff like that. So I don't know. I think we'll probably start to see more dropouts if this first round of Four Nations tournaments goes well and it actually breeds competition and not just like if there's no hitting, Jenks, if there's no hitting, I think it's gonna disappear, and then the NHL will go back to the All Star game because at that point you might as well just like save everybody like the time.
I really feel like this is going to be, it could. I see what you're saying. It could go the way of the players are like, hey, we're just going to move the puck and play fast and not play super physical because we don't want to get hurt.
Right.
I think it's going to be more competitive than a lot of people think. I think these are going to be guys saying, I don't care if this is just a Four Nations tournament. This is still our chance to represent our country. And there's no guarantee that we're going to be on the Olympic roster when it really matters.
Yeah. And the
So,
NHLPA has declined any help from the IIHF. So that kind of, pushes the factor that it's going to stay the Four Nations. It's not going to be
yep.
the, Latvia, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Morocco's, Australia's. There's not going to be any more teams really added. It's literally just the best players. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe toss in Germany or somehow figure out a way to combine maybe that Eastern European or West, yeah, Eastern European, where you kind of clump Germany and Slovakia because now we're starting to see like some of these guys really becoming really good as they grow up. So it'll be interesting to see how that tournament moves forward and how they grow. And one person that has really grown this year throughout kind of his first 5 years of his career is the Washington Capitals goalie, Jenks. Ever heard of Logan Thompson? That guy started his career pretty much as a backup, maybe even started even lower on the depth chart in the Vegas Golden Knights system, but absolutely took off when the injuries plagued the Vegas Golden Knights and really hasn't looked back. And now the Capitals are seeing, what is it, the Holtby, back in net again. I'm going to give you his stats real quick this season. He's lost only 2 games in regular what the frick is the
Regulation.
Regulation.
I got you.
I was gonna
Don't
say
worry, I got you.
regular time. I was like, what? That doesn't even sound right. Okay. Regulation, 22 he's played 27 games. 22 wins, 2 losses in regulations, 3 overtimes that don't even really matter in my book. This guy's playing lights out, Jenks. And I don't know if there's anybody here to replace him.
You already touched on it. His story coming up from basically nothing to being the starting goaltender for. Well, I mean, he started in Vegas, right, and sort of got his chance based on a couple injuries and played really well. Played his way into a share of the net. Played his way into a starting job, and has now played his way into the long-term starting goaltender for the Capitals. Sort of, this is like the story of perseverance. Don't quit working because it's going to happen for you if you believe in yourself and you put in the effort. He has been he was awesome in Vegas, and this is his first year in Washington. And I believe this is his first year or second year. I think it's his first. And he's been exceptional. He's been really, really good for them. He's a huge reason why this team is first place in the NHL right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Only 2 regulation losses is ridiculous.
Yeah, and he signed a huge contract.
He
5
just
years,
signed a massive deal.
$6.5 million. The guy is like, if he doesn't have a girlfriend, I'm sure they're calling now. Like, they're already calling me like, hey, I know this great steakhouse. If you want to take me, I got a nice dress. What's good? So it's
if he's not married now, he will be by the end of the season.
So I mean, the guy's an absolute stud. I would expect more from him this season. Like, who's their backup? Do we know?
It's
Allen?
Charlie Lindgren, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. That brings me to my next point. I have here, Lindgren loves the theatrics. Not only does he put the puck in his own net, not only does he not tend the goal like he's supposed to, he leaves the net for an extra attacker. The coach is probably like, hey, come here. Looked up. He's like, absolutely not. You stay there. And dives back and makes a crazy Fleury-esque save almost. Like, this is this kind of thing that like Fleury does. So I don't know, maybe Lindgren's watching old clips of Fleury and being like, hey, I kind of want to be the swaggy goaltender now.
He said, watch this. I'm going to get my moment. I'm getting on a highlight reel. I'm going to start heading to the bench and then fake everybody out, make a diving play like a shortstop in baseball.
So stupid. Like, why?
It did. If you watch that and the Fleury clip back to back, they're almost identical.
Yeah. Him, Ryan Miller has done that type of stuff, but usually when Ryan Miller does it, he gets plowed by like Sean Avery or whoever was the enforcer back then.
Ryan Miller hasn't played in 15 years.
Dude, that guy. Traveling suitcase. Never go to Buffalo. Never get drafted to Buffalo. That's a PSA for all future NHLers out there.
No, we talked about this too before. You do want to get drafted to Buffalo. You just get traded and then you go off.
But like, if you're Owen Power, right? There's rumors, the rumor mill circling around this kid.
No, it's pretty simple. Get drafted by Buffalo and refuse to sign in Buffalo because your next stop you're going to be a 50-goal scorer like Sam Reinhart.
I don't understand though, like why? Like, at what point do you say like, hey, like maybe we need to pull a Deion Sanders and say, I'm just not going now. Eli Manning, get his agent on the line. I'm not going. I don't know. So it's... Do you see Owen Power going anywhere? Landing? Maybe on the Penguins?
He's not going anywhere. They just signed him to an 8x8. Every defenseman on that team defenseman on that team has an 8x8.
They got too many first round defensemen. That's what they've
got like $40 million wrapped up in their defensemen because everybody's on an 8x8.
That's what happens. It's the Penguins. It's like you have too many skilled D-men that like they all suck now because they're like, oh, I don't want to be like the all-star D-man and not pass to the forward. It's like, dude, just be you. Carlson, just be you. Why is it so difficult? I don't... But that leads us into our next topic, Jenks, that hurts my soul to the bone. The Penguins. I mean, if anybody wants to skip this segment, I don't blame you. But what's going on in Pittsburgh? They're selling the team, Jenks. Are we moving to Kansas City? Did Taylor Swift buy the Penguins, Jenks?
I hope so. Move the team, sell the team. No, just don't even sell the team. Just gift it to Crosby and then walk away.
Yeah.
Let Crosby take ownership of this team and then just walk away and he can do whatever he wants with it.
If anybody's willing to put up a $20 million spot to get the minority stake, I think Crosby has that capability.
This whole thing came up because Kevin Weeks posted a picture of the Pittsburgh skyline on Twitter with no context. So of course all of the top comments are Sid's traded. He's going to the Avs. Sid's gone.
Right.
This is it. And then he comes in with the softball of they're selling a minority stake of the team. This is a nothing burger. The team isn't going anywhere. It's just somebody wants out, and they're going to just move that minority ownership to somebody else. Nothing is going to change.
When you have an ownership group from Boston, like of course they're going to move on. Like the whole FSG ownership group. Like I get it. Like hey, you own a sports team, but at what point do you're like hey, like maybe like we should have some sort of connection to Pittsburgh, or like somebody in here likes the Permanis burger or something. I don't know. Like have something going for you instead of rooting for the Red Sox all the time.
I mean, Mario still has his part ownership.
Yeah, but he's
It's
not
not
part of FSG. He's just
no.
he's just a side thing.
He's a part owner of the team.
He's the
a
side
minority owner
piece
of the
you
team.
just keep over there, you know,
Yeah.
in the on the dock for a good
Hey,
time.
Mario still gets to say that he is part owner of the team without having to front all the money because Fenway is now the cash man.
What was it 900? It was 920 million that they put up.
Something crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's crazy to think somebody just has that kind of like cash just laying around. Just your rainy day account, 920 mil.
Hey, they probably bought the team at an unfortunate time in the team's trajectory here because they're like, hey, we just won back-to-back cups. Let's get in on this team. Oh, the team is declining. Oh, the rink isn't selling out every game anymore. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, when you lose to the Sharks, that's what's going on, Jenks.
That's pretty bad.
Penguins we're almost falling out of the race at this point. And Kyle Dubas came out a couple weeks ago now that everybody's on the block except Sid, right? He said that from the beginning. And even Sid has said, like, he doesn't want to move. Like, Sid's that kind of guy. Like, he's loyal to the bone. I could see Malkin moving. I could see Letang moving. I don't think they're going to do that because they're so old. Not old, but like they're aging out of hockey capabilities. So it's one of those things where like, yeah, just like keep them around. But you got to talk to these guys and be like, hey, Sid, talk to your boy Malkin. Be like, yo, get on that Vetman status. Hey, Letang, Vetman. We need a goaltender. That's what we need. Somebody to tend the goal. Preferably not Lindgren. Preferably somebody like Thompson. Because we can't handle another Fleury in Pittsburgh. I'll tell you that for free. So, you know, coming back to the whole trade thing, when Kevin Weeks was kind of flirting the idea that was put in a bunch of people's heads that Sid's moving to the Avs. Before that came almost a trade I don't think really anybody would see, and certainly not the guy from the Avs. Rantanen for it's gonna come to me. Somebody.
I'll give you a second.
Jarvis, right?
No.
Fuck.
Nope. Not even
Hold
close.
on. Let me let the brain turn. Aho? No.
Jesus Christ, buddy.
It's the other one.
Did you even look it up?
It's the other one. It's the other guy. Who's the other guy?
Mikko Rantanen to Carolina for Martin Necas.
Yeah, that guy. See,
Yeah.
one of the Slovaks.
And other pieces, but yes.
So, but then Chicago got in, was like, hey, we'll pay for your vending machine Pepsi soda for 4 years, and we just want a draft pick. That's all we want. We want somebody to help Connor Bedard in maybe 5 years, kind of like the whole McDavid thing. So, well, what's your take on this trade? You were a big Necas fan. Big Necas fan last year. Nostradamus picked him to score, too, in the playoffs.
I did. I'm a genius. I love this guy. He made me a quick buck, too. Thank you, Martin. I think, well, first of all, let's just hit Chicago because that's a 5-second conversation. I think Chicago got hosed here. They got to take on half of Rantanen's contract, gave up Taylor Hall, and only got a third-round pick for that. Doesn't seem like enough to me. Whatever. Rantanen's contract is going to expire at the end of the season, so that's all well and good. But,
right.
I feel like they could have gotten a third-round pick just for Taylor Hall, and then they probably should have gotten additional compensation for taking on the Rantanen contract. So, I don't think they made out very well here, but it is what it is. They got something.
What's up with
Um,
first overalls? Like, you have one bad year and then you become a traveling journeyman forever.
oh, Taylor Hall.
Yeah. Guy wins an MVP and was like, well, I'll just pack my bags from year to year and go to
You
each
know what
city.
happened is he won MVP and then he went to no, he won MVP with you when he was with the Devils,
Devils.
didn't he? Not with Arizona. So yeah, the downfall started though when he signed for that 1 year in Buffalo,
It
and like
always
we already
does.
said, Buffalo's just the career killer, so that was his mistake.
Yeah.
Maybe
When you
fire
play with
your
Jeff
agent,
Skinner,
Halsey.
man, that guy's flipping burgers at McDonald's right now. He's still on an 8x8 in Buffalo too.
Agent probably went to him and said, "Hey, I got this great deal for you. You can sign for 1 year, 8 million in Buffalo, or I got a league min for you with a contender." And he said, "I'll go to Buffalo," and that was the end of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, I like Martin Necas a lot. He's obviously having a fantastic year. He is one of the fastest players in the NHL, and I think him playing with McKinnon, you're just going to see them burn a lot of guys. And he had a great first game with them. I think he had 2 points. Um, Set up a nice goal to Makar. He looks like a natural fit there, so I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, Rantanen, finally, I I'll say Carolina has some really good players. I classify Sebastian Aho and like Svechnikov and those guys as really good players. I think Rantanen is a whole next tier, and especially with his shot, he's one of the best shooters in the league. And I would say Carolina finally got their elite player by making this trade for Rantanen. I think the return is probably fair for both teams. I think it's a pretty even swap in terms of what they got. Rantanen's contract is going to be a lot heftier, obviously, than what Necas is making. So
Yeah.
that helps Colorado's cap situation a little bit for sure. But man, Carolina is scary with Rantanen on that team. They're going to be tough.
Right. I mean, I feel like Carolina's the new Lightning, right? Like they're just collecting a bunch of players that are on like vet mins or just the last years of their contract, just as like a rental unit for the playoffs. And maybe I mean the whole Kuznetsov thing didn't pan out, so maybe they're like, hey, let's actually get somebody that our team like kind of likes. Aho and Rantanen are kind of buddies from just like seeing each other on the road and the All Star games. So I think looking at this trade from like an outside perspective, I guess it really doesn't make any sense for the Avs. I don't know why Ranson was moved. Even he came out kind of bluntly, which I freaking love, and was just like in complete shock. Like he didn't want to leave the Avs. He said basically like there was no warning. Like he got a call like, hey, you're being traded. He was like, what is going on? So um, maybe it was kind of a long term play for the Avs. Like get yours before you get got sort of situation. Maybe they saw like Rantanen kind of going downhill. Um, best of luck to both
Yeah,
those guys as they adjust.
Yeah, I think just quickly, and then we'll move on to the next one. I think if I'm the Abs front office, I'm probably looking at this saying, do we want to keep Rantanen? Yes, of course
Yeah,
we do. We would have to do some serious roster moves to be able to do that with the number that he wants and the number that he's worth. So are we willing to trade other pieces away to be able to keep Rantanen? And it seems like at the end of the day, they decided no, that they'd rather keep
yeah,
some of these role guys in place and find somebody who's, a pretty darn good player in Nietzsche's as a replacement and just move on because, Rantanen's going to get paid. It's going to be well over $10 million per year.
right.
Um, and the Avs were just not in position with the cap to be able to pay him that. So probably just a business decision. And it sucks that Rantanen obviously wanted to stay and they couldn't make it work. But it is what it is. It's part of the game.
Yeah, it's maybe he felt like he was kind of being overshadowed by McKinnon and kind of wanted to see if he can create his own spot, kind of like a Jordan Stahl situation where great player, great center, but Sidney Crosby was kind of overshadowing how he's still in the league, he's still playing, so he's kind of overshadowing how good he actually was. So best of luck to both those guys, and as we kind of hit the halfway point of the season, we like to check in and see where all the garbage teams are and see where all the good teams are. And want to highlight here, the Bruins are actually in a playoff spot now, Jenks. Started off slow. Everybody was calling for Swayman's head at the beginning. Is he getting an 8x12 or is he getting a 3x2? Like, what is he getting? No, he wasn't offered a $64 million contract. Yes, he was offered $6.5 million, whatever. But they're back in the good graces of the Stanley Cup gods. Were you praying extra for this, Jenks, or what was going on?
Me?
Yeah.
Me? Yeah. Okay. I don't know what you took before we started recording here, but absolutely not.
A little bit extra stuff, a little fun juice.
A little fun. So Boston's an interesting case this year because since the beginning of the season, they were really, really struggling just to put it together. And there's been a lot of drama in the headlines. The latest thing sort of was the claim that Pastrnak didn't want to play with Marchand anymore. And Marchand sort of came out and said that's a bunch of BS that was made up by the media. You already said Swayman was under a lot of heat at the beginning of the season. They lost a lot of good role players like Jake DeBrusk and some other names that really did make them a weaker team from last year. And I think early in the season, in sort of into the midseason, a lot of people started saying, this is it. This is the turning point. This is where Boston finally takes a step back, because everybody thought that was going to happen when Chara retired, and it didn't. And then it was going to happen when Bergeron retired, and it didn't. And they've been in the playoffs every year.
Who was that other guy that left and came back?
Krejci.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, and he left and came back, and they made the playoffs again. And everybody was sort of saying this was the year, right? And they're proving all the doubters wrong. They have clawed their way back into a playoff spot. They're currently sitting in the first wild card spot as we speak. It is congested for the wild card spot right now. So it's going to be a struggle for them to maintain that, but they certainly are playing better hockey. Pastrnak has been really, really good the last few weeks here. Got a couple of 3-point games just in the last 2 weeks. So he's taken his game to another level. I think their defense needs to be better if they're going to pull this thing off, and they're going to need some consistent goaltending.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to go on a run if they want to keep holding the spot. They've been playing good, but they've got to play a little bit better if they want to maintain playoffs. But impressive that they've clawed their way back into the picture after seeming like early in the season it was like this season is a definite loss for them.
Right. And I'm looking at that Atlantic Division, and I think the first two spots are pretty locked up and kind of standard operation, Toronto and Florida. And then from 3 all the way down to 7, it like everybody but Buffalo is pretty much still in it, which is kind of crazy, and it's going to end up being a wild ride for that division going forward. The Metro, it's hard to see the Pens coming back, but if the Oilers can do it and go to the Stanley Cup, I guess. But it's pretty locked up, and I just want to say, the Central Division too is very surprising with Colorado being in the wild card spot now. And I think we said this last year. I would hate my life to win the division and then have to play Colorado in my first round wild card spot. So, just looking at Central, it's pretty much locked up. St. Louis is 10 points behind Colorado. I've never been a St. Louis fan. I don't even know how they won the Stanley Cup. It will never make sense to me. I can't even believe it actually happened. It's kind of like Montreal being in the Stanley Cup. Like, did it really happen? No. Like, in my mind, Carey Price didn't exist. And then in the Pacific, kind of the same story. You're looking at Calgary and Vancouver. Vancouver, I don't even know how they're winning games with all the drama that they're putting out there for the media. Somebody get my boy Miller Daddy out of there. Preferably not the Rangers. Preferably the Penguins. Like, hey, have Carlson. Take him. Have him. But we'll see how it shakes up. I mean, there's really no shockers. I'd like to point out Ottawa. You know, I picked them to be my sleeper team of the year. It's coming true. A lot of young guns. They're hurting my old school Penguins. So it's just so tough to see the Pens down in the 8th spot in the Metro. It's a rough season.
Yeah, it's been a weird year sort of for a lot of teams, I'll say. There's the Rangers have struggled so bad. The Bruins struggled early on. We're seeing, Colorado had a miserable start, and they found a way to turn it around. Obviously, they had to change out their entire goalie room. And then we've got great stories too, like I've hit on it a couple of times now, but the Blue Jackets are in the playoff picture,
Right.
and they're having a fantastic season. And I'm cheering for them for sure. Especially with everything they've been through in the last, we'll say 6 months or so here. And then we've got, Montreal seems to have taken a step forward. We talked about them last podcast. Detroit's in the picture. It's been an interesting season to say the least. Maybe we're seeing this sort of changing dynamic a little bit where some of these teams are finally taking a step back, like Boston and the Rangers. And
I don't like change though. Change is not good.
And it's especially as a Penguins fan, we want to be cup contenders forever.
Like when Detroit gets clean water, like that's when you know something's up. Like you're like, holy shit.
I've got good news for you, because if you ever need a reality check just to make sure that this is real life, just make sure that the Buffalo Sabres are still in last place. Then you know for sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Good thing Mr. Pagula walked in their locker room and gave them a good old pep talk. Be like, yeah, we still believe in you, boys. Like, buddy, you don't. You don't even pay for Pepsi in the rink, so Christ almighty. But I just want to point out, I think we're going to do this every podcast moving forward until it happens. Ovi is on Wayne Gretzky's ass. Sorry, pardon my French. But he's now 20 away from the old, the marker. Maybe under 20 now. I don't know if they played last night. I didn't check. But guys doing crazy things. Until this happens, I think we're just going to keep going, day by day and keep everybody updated. And I want to move on to the college hockey news because usually there's it's kind of status quo, but I think something crazy happened this past week that doesn't really happen really ever. And it's probably one of those things where people were just like way too excited and forgot like standard operation. And I just want to preface some of this stuff for people that don't know, college sports that well, or maybe you're growing up and you're interested in playing in college sports. And when you get to a level, you walk into the locker room and there's literally a piece of paper taped to the door that says procedures, times, like when you're supposed to get off the ice, when you're supposed to get on the ice for warm-ups and things like that. And especially at the NCAA level, where there's so much money involved and it's such procedure driven, the refs get on first, as always. You always check the Zamboni doors. Are they both closed? Yes, check. Then you're like, where are the refs? Refs are not here. We can't go on. Refs are behind us. They don't want to walk through 20 children. So they're like, go ahead, guys. And then usually there's an onslaught of, go, 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 shut the fuck up, go. And you're like, all right, yeah, now let's go. But at that level, it's refs go on, get a good stretch, put the nets in, and then the home team goes on, and then the away team goes on. Or it could be flipped depending on, what it is, what rink. But I'll let you take it away from there because that was like my kind of basic procedural lesson.
Well, I mean, I I'm curious what your thoughts are on this too, because you're the one who shouted it out to me. It just seems a little bit ridiculous. Like people are being too uptight about this. Because what happened, right, was the goalie jumped on early, and they gave him, like, they were trying to give him his rookie lap, right? And the refs weren't yet on the ice, which is breaking procedure. So this was BU, right?
Yes, the
Okay.
red one, the red team. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So the BU goalie jumps on the ice to take his rookie lap. You're just trying to have a good time with it. This is warm ups, mind you.
Yeah, and
This is
this
not
is
like
like
for the game.
he came off the boat, like off the boat to BU to play, and the boys, I'm sure, were like hooked him up to the Russian gas before, and then was like, have some fun.
So because he broke standard operating procedure, somebody's panties were in a wad, and the team had to start with a 2 minute penalty kill at the start of the game
Right.
because they broke procedure. So not only did like this kid's moment impact the rest of the game, like imagine finding out that your team is penalized because you went out and tried to take a rookie lap and you just stepped on the ice before the refs, like something so minor like that.
Right.
That's got to be deflating if it's your first start in net, and you're like, now we're starting on the penalty kill. Like this is insanity. I think it's ridiculous. I think people are just being way too picky, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it too, as the rules guy, the resident rules guy.
Right. Yeah, super rules guy. Rules guide my life. So I think there's a context here of it's BCBU, right? Like there's a rivalry, there's an actual rivalry between schools. Like the players know, it's kind of like the Philly Pens rivalry. Like there will always be like this tension because Travis Konechny is such a loser that like you just hate him so much. So so it's like any little advantage you can get to like just get inside the mind of the other team, I think you'll take it, especially if it's a goalie. Now, as a ref, are you getting out there and being like, God, I hope nobody points this out because I really don't want to give that a penalty? I'm sure. I'm also positive that if you talk to both coaches, be like, hey, like this happened. Technically, it's a penalty. Technically, you deserve it because like it's breaking procedure. Like you broke the rules, right? So I think it would be tough for me to give that a penalty because you're just like, dude, like who cares? Like what it like he didn't affect the game.
Right.
He just affected how the game operated. Like it wasn't actually it was an operations error on the BU guys, and I think because it usually never happens, and it probably hasn't happened 10 years. Like people just it's just something that like you don't even think about. So I think for the next couple years there might be a little watch guard guy, maybe stands by the door, but hey, don't I'm watching the clock here. Now you go.
Yeah.
Like that's how these jobs get invented. It's kind of like how the football CFB guys have a person on the sidelines that literally just holds the coach back. Like, hey, coach, step over here. So it's like kind of like that. It's so crazy. I would never give this a penalty. There'd be no way. It would be hard. You'd be hard pressed.
Yeah,
God,
just crazy, man.
could you imagine
I
like
think it's
explaining
ridiculous.
that role? Like how my first thought is like I don't even know what that is. Like I would see it and be like, oh, they're coming out, and like no other thought until somebody be like, no, you have to penalize that. I'm like, huh?
If I'm a coach and this is being called on my team, and the ref comes up to me to try to explain this and says, hey, you're going to start the game on the penalty kill because you broke this procedure because your goalie stepped, I am lighting that ref up. I am saying, you are out of your mind. This is the most petty thing in the entire world. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. I don't know why you need to, rules are there to be enforced when you are like egregiously making a difference in something. Like,
Right.
if we need to enforce it, we will. This is an exception where like the entire team wasn't out on the ice. There was not going to be a brawl pregame. It was the goalie stepped onto the ice before the refs. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's pick our battles here, guys.
There is an instance this year where a player, like the teams were warming up, and the player would constantly like come up around the boards and cross the red line and skate all the way, like cross the red line and skate all the way across. And like the first time you do, like, all right, like whatever, but like he did that on every lap, and we went over to the coach, be like, coach, like if he does that one more time, like we're giving him a 10-minute, because like there's just, I mean, you got half the ice. Why do you need to keep doing that every time? Instead, it's just like psychologically he's trying to like get in the minds of people, like, dude, like you're not, like, I promise it's fucking Western PA hockey, like you're not. So I mean, I think that's a point where I almost gave somebody something like that, but you got, it's tough. It's a tough call, and I'm sure everybody on the ice was just like, oh, like now we have to do this shit.
It's a killer, man.
But other than that, Jenks, any college hockey news to report?
Yeah, a couple other pieces of information. After the big NIL announcement from back in November, we're still seeing some more movement. There was just another guy. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but I just saw the news on it. Christian Humphreys left the Michigan Wolverines to go to the OHL.
Interesting. Was he a starter?
What's that?
Was he like a first liner?
I don't think he was a first liner. No. The article that I read said it didn't sound like he even suited up for every game.
Sure, that makes sense.
He had played maybe half the games at that point or something, but heading to the OHL. They must have made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he's probably getting some more looks there. And now, typically in the past that would mean you can't go back to college. But what's probably going to happen now with the new deal is he'll finish the year in the OHL, and then he'll bounce back to college
Pittsburgh
next
boy.
year. Yep. Yeah, how about that?
I was like, I kind of remember that last name. All right.
So, yeah, he'll probably finish the year in the OHL, and then I don't know if he stays there next year or not, depending on his age, but he'll be able to go back to college somewhere. Don't know that he'll return to Michigan, probably not at this point, but he'll have some options to go other places. So, still interesting. We're still seeing more and more moves like this because of the NIL agreement. I want to give a shout out to the UConn, Connecticut Huskies. They have jumped into the top 10 on the official rankings this week after being 13 last week. They've won 4 games in a row, and there's an annual tournament that they play in Connecticut, the Connecticut Ice Tournament, and they won that tournament this past weekend. So
do you know who the other teams were by chance? Probably like Providence and like stuff like that, but
yeah, I'm trying to find that out. They played. Trying to find the schedule from this tournament. Here's the schedule. So they played Sacred Heart, and
Sacred Heart's good this year, isn't it?
Sacred Heart's having a good year. They played Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac.
Okay.
This past weekend and won both games. So, nice little, mid-season victory for the team. Definitely a morale booster. They're having a heck of a year. Great record. They're 14-8-2 overall. Typically they're in a tough division, so typically a team that we don't see in the top rankings cracked into the top 10, and hopefully they finish the season strong. It would be fun to see them play for a spot in the tournament, rather than some of these other teams that they got to play in the Hockey East that the ones we see all the time, UMass, Providence, the BU, those big names. So
did we actually see UMass ever since Cale Makar left?
Yes. They've won it since Cale Makar left.
I don't believe it.
They have won a national championship since Cale Makar left.
Well, it doesn't exist. It's kind of like St. Louis, it's just like, why?
So that's all we got for college this week.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, I didn't even think about NCAA players going back to the OHL, but you know, we talked about this a few times. NCAA is just bigger. Like if you're a smaller guy and like you're more speed oriented, I think the OHL is the way to go, and then you move into
Yeah.
NCAA when you get bigger and develop more. I think that's like an actual good path as far as like hockey development, just like for the sport in general. Not to like pick sides on anybody, but because like you see somebody like Connor Bedard, unless you're freaking nasty, like you're gonna get bodied in the NHL if you go straight from the OHL or CHL or whatever you want to fucking call it. But yeah, moving on to the next favorite section of the podcast, the Writing on Our Wall picks. We are picking for February 1st, full slate of games, half slate of games on February 1st. Jenks, what's your Writing on the Wall?
I'm gonna just take a stab because I'm between two games here, okay. And my gut's pulling me towards one game, and it's for a little bit of a sour taste because as I've mentioned before, I'm a fantasy hockey advocate.
I just want to say we both were 1-0 last week. For the record,
that's fantastic. Go Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
They're my new team now. With the Penguins clearly being out of the picture, I'm moving on to the Blue Jackets. So I'm having a little bit of a rough season in fantasy this year. I'll have to admit that. And part of the reason is because, I started off the year hot, made a big splash. I said, I'm securing my goaltender spot, okay? I'm going to feel really good about myself. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get 2 top goalies, and then we're going to be good. I have lost 7 straight games since I made this trade.
Tough go.
And Philip Gustafson, this is your fault. You are going into Ottawa on Saturday, and I guarantee you're going to get the start, and you've been playing just terrible ever since I traded for you. So I hope you get shelled. I'm going to bench you, and then Tim Stützle is going to net a hat trick, and he's going to do wonders for me because my Senators have been this year.
Yeah,
fantastic. They've been awesome for me. So Ottawa is going to help me out in the fantasy circle, get me back in the win column. Gustafson is going to ride the pine pony, and we're getting a dub this week in fantasy hockey. So, Ottawa Senators over the Minnesota Wild on Saturday, February 1st.
Wow.
Look that responsive,
Okay.
folks.
All right. I'm down with it. I'm going kind of the opposite direction of shitbag teams. Kind of the battle for the President's Trophy here. Jets, Capitals. Almost the game, I would say the game to watch for this weekend. Kind of some would say a Stanley Cup matchup. Some would say. I wouldn't, but some would say. Can Ovi do it against the best? Is Hellebuck strong enough to not give up the post against Ovi's spot? That's the issue that is going to be raised, and I think Ovi's on a tear. He's lighting it up. Lighting lamps, banging babes, rushing gas all day long. That's all he knows. He's known that since he was 18. And I think Hellebuck's just not going to stop. The American-born is not going to beat the Russian dominance from Ovi this year. I can't see it, Jenks. I want to believe that USA, the Bald Eagles, going to swoop down and pick up the puck, and it's going to go in the across Lindgren's the glove side high. But I live in the real world. That doesn't happen. What does happen is Ovi's slap shots go in. Pick Ovi and the Caps over the Canadian Jets all day and every day. Book that one responsibly, of course.
Love it. Beautiful. Go Ovi, go.
God, it's a sad day when you're like, I don't even look at Ovi like I hate him. It was like a weird stage in life where like I hate Travis Konechny more than anything right now. Like that's how I used to hate Ovi. And like now I'm like, oh, if Ovi won like 4 more cups, I'd be like, that's awesome. Cool. So
we've gotten past the point in their careers where it's Crosby versus Ovi. Now it's just like we're watching 2 of the greatest players of all time.
Dinosaurs. Yeah. Even though Crosby can barely tie his skates anymore with the freaking back pain he's had this year. Christ.
Jeez.
He needs to get somebody for $1 million just to tie his skates. God.
He's probably getting massages after every time he gets on the ice now.
I would. I mean, hey, get me like bagged up. Get those like what is the full body like suction pillow thing? like that people sleep in. Oh God! All right, guys. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Black Aces Hockey Podcast. And as always, I'm your co-host, Blaine Abs. I'm right here as always with your co-host, Nick James Jenkins. We're out of here.